Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another exciting episode of Queening with the Empress with me, your host, Patience Pat Phiri. I would like to start by welcoming our wonderful live audience who are joining us from all across, wherever. And make a quick note, if you would like to be part of our live audience, just hit us up and let us know and we will make it happen. So today we want to talk about the role of young people in nation building, the role of young people in our communities, the role of young people in our societies. Who are young people? Who are the youth, or as we've come to know in Zimbabwe, the youthies? According to the UN, and a document I read, young people are described as people that are between 15 and 24. In Zimbabwe, I know of young people that are 55, that are still representing youth leagues and stuff, that are 55, 65. So technically, I could still be young at 40. And so we want to talk, what is it about young people? Why do we quickly dismiss them? Why do we ignore them? Yet they contribute a large number to the population. Why do they feel like they should not be included in decision making of the country? And why do we as a country, as a society, choose not to listen to the young people and count them in and bring them to the table? I have a young person who is joining me to talk about this. She is a firebrand. She cannot be ignored. She is powerful, and she is a CEO of Umotle. CEO of Umotle. I love that. I love that. And she's the program lead at Magamba. Her name is Queen. I must say that. Her name is Queen Mantate Mlotshwa. Welcome. Umtaka Koko.
Thank you so much. I'm feeling so important right now.
I know. Yes, go shorty praise singer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, CEO Siyakubona. As a young person, what is a young person from your understanding? What is a young person? I think I'm a young person at almost 40.
Okay. Well, I think from what you just said, I think in Zim, a young person is someone that sees themselves as a young person. Although, like, if you look at the United Nations and the likes of the World Health Organization, they look at young people as, the range between 15 and 24. But in Zim specifically, we have the National Youth Policy says that young people are aged 15 to 35. And then politically speaking, it's 18 to 35. So I think there's this wide range that starts from 15 up to 35. And then in terms of applicability, then you then look at politics, issues of, sexual reproductive health rights and all those other things. Yeah.
So, you are not putting me in the bracket of being young. I see you.
Unfortunately, unfortunately.
I see you. Yes, that's discrimination. Okay, so Mantate, what is it as a young person? You're young and you're vibrant, you're energetic. What is it that you feel young people nowadays face? What are your trials and tribulations?
Guneni, like the first thing that just popped into my mind as a young Black woman is the idea, there's something I was reading recently, which if you look at the Elon Musk, if you look at Bill Gates, the Donald Trumps, and all those people that are rich in the world, a lot of them trace back their wealth from parents investing something into the beginning of their career. So it's something that we don't have the privilege of having. You're born into a family where you might be the first in a lot of things. So already that becomes the biggest challenge because you don't have the resources that launch you. If your parents are not connected enough, it means that a lot of things don't really look like it's something for you. So that's the first thing that I think is a big challenge we face. And just linked to that is the idea of poverty. I think poverty is such a big thing in Zim, both in rural and in urban Zim, where you're looking at a situation where some of our parents have never worked their entire life, Abanye, they've worked, but you got retrenched along the way. So you have children born into families where abazali literally don't have formal employment. So there's no guarantor for a lot of things. So I think the biggest challenge is poverty at home, where when a child feels like there is no future for them, they resort to other things. You look at drug abuse, it's something that's linked to that. It's one of the biggest challenges in Zimbabwe, with all this depression over jobs, access to education, all those other things. Young people are resorting to drugs. When you're resorting to drugs, there are other things involved. There's unprotected sex and young women getting pregnant, they drop out of school. There's STIs and the spread of HIV. So there's like a whole lot of things that spring from the very concept of poverty at home. And then the other thing I wanted to mention that's so important for me is the issue of politics. Like I mentioned, Uti, young people have energy. So a lot of political parties tend to, use young people. In our political parties, young people are a majority, but they're not in these positions that make them influential enough, to make the kind of decisions that benefit them. A lot of them are used, to frontline violence. They're used to manipulate and all those other crazy things. So I think for us, it's the socio-economic political challenges. Maneng, guys. Asking so unpick your work.
Yes, Aliko right. Yes, Aliko right. But many people would say the youth of today are lazy. And we've had our faves call out the youth that they're not stepping up to the plate and things like that. What's your take on that?
I don't think that young people are lazy. Like, we work hard. I won't lie. Like, I think speaking also for just myself and other people that I know, there are so many young people that are at school, that are working formally, and then they're handling side gigs because the formal work doesn't really, cater for the needs that they have. So I'd say a lot of young people in Zim that are really working hard to kind of making it work in this country. But if the environment is designed, it's almost like the environment wants to oppose you. If you're starting a business, there's issues of, where do I get a loan? If I'm getting a loan from government, that means it's coming in bonds, and the value of the bond literally changes every day. There's like a whole lot of things that are standing in the way of young people progressing themselves. So I want to think that a lot of young people work hard. It's not fair to say young people are lazy, because they are working hard.
What is the role of the youth in our society, besides being used by politicians and whoever else just wants to have numbers at an event?
I think, Tina, is our youth, because we're consistently being told that we're a majority. So being a majority, it means that we're beneficiaries of a lot of things. We look at local government, amanzi, access to water, access to recreational facilities, access to health facilities, good health facilities. There's a lot of things that we are supposed to be beneficiaries of. But the system, like I keep mentioning, you discover that in my communities there too, our health facilities are not to par. Izikolo, it's not par. If you look at employment within the local systems, my constituencies and stuff, it's not to par. So what it means is that there's a majority population that is not benefiting from systems that are meant to benefit them. So young people have a responsibility, number one, to demand, because you elect a council into place, you elect a government into place to actually provide for the services. So when they fail to do that, you have a responsibility to advocate for those things, to hold the government accountable, to push for the country to prioritize our youth priorities. And then you also look generally at abantu abadala in our communities. I always say that they raised us. We have a responsibility to give back. Giving back means being able to, provide for them in certain ways. So I think as young people also, we have a responsibility to abantu abadala and those orphans and vulnerable groups in our communities. With whatever economic activity that we do, the networks that we have and what we're able to tap into, we have a responsibility to use that to channel back resources into developing communities so that abantu abadala and these vulnerable groups can actually benefit from that. And then the most important thing is, you mentioned earlier, young people have the energy. It's something that's obvious. We have the energy, we have the creativity, we have the innovation, we have everything we need, to make things work for our community. So we're actually responsible for coming up with ideas that solve the problems in our communities. And when we come up with these ideas, we then push beyond that to say, how do we ensure that stakeholders within our communities work with us to actually help us realize those ideas? Because if we keep saying we're a majority, it means that we're responsible. The future that's coming is for this majority. So if we don't, take up that responsibility to say at what level of society do I have a responsibility as a young person to not just empower myself, but empower my family in terms of ugogo, the elderly in my community, the young people that are vulnerable, people with disability and things like that. So I think our responsibility is just being able to respond to the challenges in our community.
Kodwa liyakwazi yini ukuthi this is the power that you have and this is your responsibility? Liyakwazi, or like you're saying that you hear a lot about it, that the youth are the majority, the youth are the future, the youth are energetic, the youth. Do you actually know the power that you guys have, and that it needs to be, I think it needs to be, or should we harvest it for you? But if we then harvest it for you, we would then direct the direction of this power, would it not be? So do young people know the power that they possess?
Yeah, we do. I mean, well, we do. I think a lot of us are, we are aware, first of all, the fact that we're majority is pushed in our face all the time. We see it in our communities. But number one, Zimbabwean youth are afraid. History tells us when you do certain things, that help you. Ideally, when I say, oh, Angela Mans, I need to go to council and demand water, or I need to go online and use my skills, social media skills, to push council to deliver. Normally, when you say those things, it's as if you're fighting the government at local and national, whatever level. So young people have seen a history where if you do certain things that demand your rights, something happens to you. Something that you wouldn't want happening to you, if violence, we read about, okay, not even read, we know friends that will tell you, which I was abducted, I was arrested for small things that are basic in the country. So a lot of young people are very afraid. So even though you have the energy and the power to help to hold the state accountable, in a lot of instances, you're like, am I safe? And it's not just even for you, it's for your family as well. It might not be me they target, but they might go to Gogo and Kulumani. They might go to my mother in this place because, well, they seem to have access to a lot of things. So I think a lot of young people are afraid. And then the second thing is at the level of, economic opportunities. Like I mentioned, we have those crazy ideas that we want to implement that could potentially help us not just to empower ourselves, but to create employment for others. But we have to okay, I've got the idea. I'm not Elon Musk, so my dad didn't actually leave me an inheritance that allows me to launch this idea. So that means I need someone to come in, but that someone primarily is the state, right? The state doesn't have that, that resource for young people to launch these ideas that they have. And even if they did, it's not really practical against the inflation and all those things. You look at my banks as well. For me to get a loan, there are certain guarantors that they need that I'll pay it back. I need to have proof of employment, which, as I said, we're not employed. So a lot of these young people don't have that. You look at collateral in the form of a stand or whatever it is that's in your name. Honestly speaking, there is nothing in the name of those young people. So you discover that even the resources that they need, to launch those ideas that they have, they're not there. So I think Emma Youth, we are low-key aware of the power we have. We might not have the necessary environment that kind of enables us to become through those ideas and all this energy that I say we have.
As I was prepping for this show, I tried to find out from young people what was holding them back. And the one thing that kept popping up was that they felt that because of their age, they are dismissed. Because abantu bathi vele sijayele ukwenza so vele ikuthi what, or they will tell them that no, you're just spirited because you are young. You don't understand that some of us have been doing this for a long time and it won't help. So they are not encouraged enough. They don't feel like they have the support to do things. But I want to ask you, you're young and you are doing amazing things. So is it because you've had opportunities or you've worked for it? Because like you're saying, it's because it's from a trust. Yeah, it's because this and that happened, because this and that happened. What would you, based on your lived experience, be your answer to that? When people say no, then you also take it and say, okay, and then you sit down.
Yeah, I think it's true, guys. I mean, from Godala, I'm a youth, like they listen, they let you, these days it's crazy because they let you talk. And then when you're done talking, they continue to make decisions that were based on whatever they're thinking regardless. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. First of all, like I mentioned, if we don't have young people in decision-making platforms, like weight matters because we can yep all we want. But if you're not in that seat where the final decision is made, it becomes very problematic. And I think, like you're saying, sile energy. So people normally mistake you having energy for you being like a local. Abantwana abathunywayo energy just to my message that you didn't exactly come up with. So I think that's kind of the nature of, the way we look at young people in our communities, where they come up with those ideas, they think of those things, then they use us, to implement, because we have the energy and the innovation to implement their ideas, which is nonsense at the end of the day, because we are the majority, we are the future. Not to say they won't be there in 10 years, but in 50, they won't be there. So I think, yeah, that's one challenge. But then on the other hand, for me, it's this, for me, the understanding that no one gets to tell me what I can be except myself. When you grow up in a community where you don't have so many people that resemble or that role model the kind of future you want to grow into, it means that you have a responsibility to become that, not just for yourself, but for every other young person that has not seen it. So that's basically how I look at my life. And just looking at my path from when I started right up to where I am and where I'm going, I think hard work pays. I won't lie. Like for me, I remember there was a time when I think I spent a year and a half or two just doing a lot of volunteering. People thought, I didn't have money. I was just, volunteering, doing a lot of those things, just trying to find myself. And when people see you working hard and you're consistent, that's the thing. Like when you work hard and you're consistent in what you're pushing, there are people that see you. And when they get into places that you don't get into, they speak about you. For me, what has really pushed me far in life is I have people that speak about me in places that I would never probably get to without them actually introducing me. They talk of a young person from Bulawayo, in Harare, in Zimbabwe, that's doing ABC, that potentially needs support to, push your ideas and all those things. So I think the first thing that has worked for me is that whole, hard work thing. And I would lie, guys. I mean, when people see us, say Instagram, looking all pretty and all that, they think guys channel on my Snapchat videos, but we don't sleep. Like for me, that's just the thing. I'm like, I do my 8 to 5 job and I'm happy. I love my job. I enjoy my job. But outside helping someone build a vision for the institution, I have a responsibility to build my own vision, to ensure that the Mantate brand grows. So that's the brand that I grow outside my work hours, It's just understanding beyond your job. Because if I get fired today, what's my backup plan, So there's some of us that really, I work hard, and I know people that probably work harder than me, working multiple jobs. People don't sleep. And that's why we see them winning. And then other people don't see that when they call you and see you succeeding. So, how do you do it? I'm like, it's not a formula, babe. Like, it's not set in, it's not like I wake up and I know who, it's the work, So I think a lot of us really need to kind of find ways of maneuvering the environment, because the environment will never, fix itself for you. So you wake up one day and you're 50 and you're still crying for the government to give you the environment that works. So for me, it's about, while I push the government to do what it's mandated to do, what is it that I'm doing to ensure that I cushion my today and my tomorrow, to ensure that my kids don't have to, struggle the same way that I did.
Okay. So Annelise, you've got your hand up.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
As you were sitting, I wanted to answer your question. Like you asked, ukuthi wini okubisela ama-youth emuva, like from doing izinto lezo okumele siziyenze. Wini sidiniwe, uyakwazi ukuthi like e-areani yethu kulama-potholes. So I was saying ukuthi guys, when singathathi inhlabathi sigqibele ama-potholes la, because kuhamba khona thina, kuhamba khona imoto zabobaba bethu, kuhamba khona imoto zabobhuti bethu. Yazi ukuthi umbuzo into abayitshoyo bonke abantu bathi uyasijwayela wena, thina silambile. People are hungry, we are tired, and so mina sengukuthi no, why singazenzeli thina like njengama-youth ukuthi, because laba abantu expect ukuthi besenzele, they are not going to do it. Why singazenzeli? Vele abantu badiniwe, ama-youth adiniwe, kasikhathele, asikwazi senze siphelele. Omunye athi khona mina kulokuthi ngihambe lapha ngcono ngiyedinga ukudla ukuthi ngidle labantu abami kulokuthi ngitshone ngibhizi lapha emgwaqweni. So what I'm saying ukuthi ama-youth siphelele, like kuningi esikucabangayo kulokuthi sicabanga ukudevelop community, sithi ngcono sicabanga ukuthi sidinga ukudla sizisasele into ezinjalo.
Ngiyabonga Sande, that's very enlightening ukuthi lithi selidiniwe, and we just said ukuthi ama-youth you are le energy. I was going to ask, and thank you for that, Sande, because my next question was, what is the importance of youth leadership in communities? Nxa bengakhathalanga bengadingi ukudla, what is it, Mantate?
I think, like I said earlier, ukuthi since we're raised by like, if you're coming from a casa like me, you're not just raised by ugogo, you're literally raised by the entire community. So you have a responsibility, to abantu that raised you, because abaning, they're tired now, ngabantu abadala and all those things. So you discover when you look at the issue of amanzi, ugogo, there are a lot of ogogo in our communities, ugogo angeke avuke selayinela amanzi, isiyadinga amanzi and all those things because council decided not to open the taps. So it's one of those things where, for me, it's always asking myself at a practical level, what is it that I can provide? Or what is it that I can influence people around me that have the money and the resources to actually provide that addresses our community. So I think the first responsibility for young people is to the people that raised us and the vulnerable groups in our community where who can't, people with disability that genuinely can't do it for themselves, and so it's up to us, for those that have access, to make sure we channel resources back into the community. But the other important thing as young people that we need, the role that we have, is to be in decision making. We cannot have there's nothing wrong with having abantu abadala kind of part of the system that makes decisions. But if the elders are the only ones, making the decisions, it becomes problematic because indlela abacabanga ngayo, it's not, I don't think it has our generational experiences in mind, right? But beyond just us being in office, if you look at Ibulayi, for instance, we've had mayor, the first mayor was young. We've got a number of councillors right now that are very young, and for me, it comes back to say, when we are now in leadership, we have a responsibility to do better. Like, you find a lot of people jump into office and they do the exact same thing that we're saying, ukuthi abantu laba, abadala okuthawumele bakhitshwe ezikhundleni have been doing. So you discover that when we fail to deliver a better form of leadership, we also kind of have failed. So we have a responsibility to get into leadership. We also have a responsibility to be accountable, transparent leaders when we are now elected into office. And the last thing also, I think, would be ideally, since we know we have the creativity, the innovation, how to use technology and all these things, I think we need to find ways of using that technology to bring it down to local challenges, to say, how do I use my ability to develop applications, my ability, I don't know, whatever it is you're good at, how do I use that, to respond to our challenges in my community? So I think in an ideal environment with the right resources, young people should be doing that.
You're speaking about how we have responsibilities to the communities that raised us. Is this how you ended up putting up a Mkotwamans?
Yes, definitely. I mean, for me, like Ekaslami, I won't lie, I was raised by Okoko. There's a whole, like, I don't know, that have sold amatama my entire life. They've been selling amatamates, and abaneng, they've raised abazukulu. And for me, it has hurt me a lot to see, especially the young women not finish school. A lot of them getting pregnant, dropping out of school, a lot of them failing their Form 4, the A-level, or even finishing A-level, and there's no money for you to, pursue your education further. So I've always had that thing, more than just the responsibility to Ugogo. I also have a responsibility to those other people, because they feel somehow like I'm part of that, the child they raised that's supposed to inspire their other young people. So when I did the borehole project, too much acres. And indaba yamanzi yayingistress ukuthi we never had isibhorane close by. So my thinking was, if they're going without water for a week or two, ogogo laba, where they're getting the water. So the borehole project was really trying to say thank you to the community for raising me, but also being able to ensure ukuthi ogogo laba, especially emsikeni, isikotho sankhona siyi-stationed vele strategically ukuthi omasalu labana bakuline. So I know it's crazy, but it makes me happy to know there's something close by.
Okay. Yeah. We've asked our audience to share their lived experiences as young people. I will read something here from Melody. Uti, another thing is lack of exposure. We are just talking that if you get enough education, automatically you are successful. Not knowing ukuthi we can make money using other means. Also, we do not support each other as youths and young people. Okay. All right. Thank you, Melody. Thank you. In Zimbabwe, I think, and the whole world, you spoke about it, that we need to adapt quickly to the way of the world, to how things are going, especially now that Corona came our way. People have to quickly move forward towards the internet and making things happen. We can't go back to what we used to do before. And when you kusebenza emafemu, before our parents babesebenza emanda, bechova amabhayisikili, or teachers and nurses and all those things. So maybe the youth need to adapt and try and find ways to make it in the new world. And I think that is where the exposure would come in. And I would love to find out, what do the youth dream about? What are your dreams? What are your ambitions? This is something that I would love to find out, Mantate. What are your dreams? I know you want to run for office, for presidency, but what else? What's your dream as a young person in Zimbabwe? What do you want to see? What do you think will happen if you had the power? So I would love to find out from our audience members, what is your dream? What's your ambition? This is the one thing that you would do. Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, mina, my dream as a young person is ukubona intsha ephumelelayo. That's the only dream that I have as a young person.
Eyakho oyabanye bonke, mina ngifuna ukuzwa eyakho yakho.
Okay. Me as a young person, I just want to see myself rising up the ladder, helping other people ukuthi be-achieve ama-dreams abo, changing the nations, helping ama-communities njengama-needs abo efulfilleka. Just that.
Okay, what do you think is the role of young people in your community? What's your role in your community besides helping other young people?
Okay, my role in the community as a young person. I'll come back.
Okay, so this is what we're saying, that the young people need to know what their role is so that they can know what their responsibilities are and they can deliver. I mean, we say a lot for them and they are forced to then just jump in here and there. Tariro?
So I would really want to take you back to what you asked before. In Indaba zokuthi, why are we scared as the youth, or why are we scared to participate in decision making and all that? I think the problem is, Tina, we've been told that we are resilient people. Singabantu that adapt quickly. We are people that just know how to survive, and that has.
Tariro, we can barely hear you.
Yeah, am I still there? Can you hear me?
Okay, you can talk now. We had lost you. We lost the connection.
So we've sort of embraced being told ukuthi si resilient, and for us to prove that sesizitshela ukuthi thina siyahasla, sesizitshela ukuthi amanzi vele sizawathole esibhoraneni, amanzi sizawamelela ibhawuza. That is not normal. You need to start to see those things as normal to you, because if you see them as normal, you are then embracing someone telling you ukuthi ngizabuya and be your leader, ngingalungisa ama-roads, ngingakuniki amanzi that you're supposed to have. And yet the constitution tells me I've got the right to safe and clean water, and I'm not getting that water is safe and clean. So when you voice, like Mantate said, when you start to voice about these things, you've got people following you. You've got people trying to find out who you are. Have embassy. But how can I be sent by an embassy when I'm struggling to get a man? Per se, I'm on a wheelchair. How do I go get water? How do you tell me what to you, what in Kulume? When I'm struggling to get water. So these are the things. Saba, and we've sort of embraced into Enjalo, and my future of my dream would be to see a Zimbabwe that's very inclusive, but corner. So for me, my future would be inclusive society, regardless of whoever. Remember, it's a two-way thing. whether you're able-bodied or you're not, you also need these facilities because you're at potential of being disabled one day. You're not also in Zimbi. You understand that? So if we are to speak about a conversation on allow of an inclusive society, that's the Zimbabwe that I want to see. Level to everyone, equal to everyone. That's my dream.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Okay, my beloveds, this is where we stop for today. Be sure to catch the second part next week of this interesting conversation of the role of young people in nation building. Keep it with Queening with the Empress on Site ZW.